The crystal chandelier above table 7 had been flickering for the past hour, casting unstable shadows across the white linen tablecloth. I watched it from my station by the kitchen doors, my feet aching in the cheap flats I'd worn for the 3rd consecutive shift. The restaurant, Luminaire, one of Manhattan's most exclusive dining establishments, smelled of truffle oil and old money, scents that had become as familiar to me as the perpetual exhaustion that settled into my bones. I was invisible here. That was the point of being a good waitress, to anticipate needs before they were spoken, to materialize with fresh wine and disappear like smoke. After 6 months of working double shifts to keep my studio apartment and send money back to my sick mother in Ohio, I'd perfected the art of being nobody. The kitchen doors swung open with their familiar squeak, and Chef Antoine's voice carried through, sharp, French, perpetually dissatisfied. "The system, it is down again. 3rd time this month. Corporate, they send their technicians, their specialists, and still nothing works." I'd noticed the pattern. Every few weeks, the restaurant's integrated reservation and payment system would crash, causing chaos during the dinner rush. Tonight was no exception. The hostess stand was surrounded by frustrated managers, their faces illuminated by the blue glow of malfunctioning tablets. I'd seen at least 15 different IT professionals come through in the past month alone, each one leaving with the same defeated expression and the problem unsolved. But I had more immediate concerns. My section was filling up, and I needed to focus on the basics: smile, serve, survive. That's when he walked in. The air changed first. It wasn't something I could name, just a subtle shift in the atmosphere, like the pressure drop before a storm. The usual restaurant chatter seemed to lower in volume, conversations becoming murmurs. Even the flickering chandelier seemed to steady itself, as if the building itself was holding its breath. I looked up from the water glasses I was arranging and saw him. He moved through the restaurant like darkness itself had taken human form. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. His hair was black, swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and shadows. But it was his eyes that made my hands still on the water pitcher, dark, calculating, missing nothing as they swept across the room. He wasn't alone. 2 men flanked him, one older with silver at his temples, built like a wall in an immaculate navy suit, and another younger, leaner, with the kind of awareness that suggested he could identify every exit and potential threat in seconds. Neither man looked at the menu or the decor. They looked at everyone else. The maître d', Richard, who never flustered, actually stammered as he approached them. "Mr. Volkov, we weren't expecting you this evening. Your usual table isn't the corner." The man's voice was quiet, barely above a murmur, but it cut through the space like a blade. Russian accent, subtle but unmistakable. "And I believe you have technical difficulties this evening. I'd prefer payment to be functional." How did he know about the system crash? We'd only discovered it 20 minutes ago. Richard's face went pale. "Of course, Mr. Volkov. We have our best people. I'm sure you do." He moved past Richard with the kind of grace that came from absolute certainty that the world would bend around him, not the other way around. And God help me, I was assigned to the corner section. My manager, Patricia, grabbed my elbow as I headed toward my station, her manicured nails digging into my uniform sleeve. "Emma, that's Konstantin Volkov. Do you understand?" The Konstantin Volkov. The name meant nothing to me, but the fear in her eyes told me everything I needed to know. Smile, be perfect, and for God's sake, don't make any mistakes. He's... She lowered her voice, glancing toward the corner table where he'd settled like a king on a throne. "Connected. Very connected. Some say he runs half the imports on the East Coast, but no one can prove anything. Just be invisible." Invisible. I could do invisible. I approached the table with my best professional smile, notepad ready, ignoring the way my heart hammered against my ribs. Up close, he was even more imposing. The chandelier light caught the sharp line of his jaw, the slight crook in his nose that suggested it had been broken at least once, the thin scar that disappeared into his hairline above his left temple. His cologne was subtle, cedar, and something darker. almost smoky. "Good evening, gentlemen. May I start you with something to drink?" The two men with him didn't look at me. Their eyes continued scanning the restaurant, cataloging faces, watching the doors. But Konstantin Volkov looked up, and I felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. His eyes were darker than I'd thought. Not brown, closer to black, with tiny flecks of amber that caught the light. They studied me with an intensity that made me want to step back, but I held my ground. I'd dealt with entitled men before, men who thought waitresses existed for their entertainment. This felt different. He wasn't looking at me like I was beneath him. He was looking at me like I was a puzzle he was trying to solve. "Vodka, Beluga Gold Line. Neat." His voice was quieter up close, barely above a whisper, but I heard every syllable perfectly. "You're new." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. 6 months, sir. 6 months and 13 days. He leaned back in his chair, his fingers drumming once against the tablecloth. "You started the Tuesday after Labor Day. You worked the evening shift exclusively, always tables 5 through 9. You walk to the subway after work, always the same route. You send money home every 2 weeks. The blood drained from my face. My notepad trembled in my hand. He noticed, of course. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in those dark eyes. Not amusement, exactly. Curiosity, maybe. "I make it my business to know who serves my food. Security precaution, nothing more. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid." As if fear was a choice, something I could simply decide not to feel, while this stranger casually revealed he'd been having me watched for months. "I'll get your vodka right away," I managed, my voice somehow steady, despite the terror coursing through my veins. I turned to leave, desperate for the relative safety of the bar, when I heard the commotion near the hostess stand intensify. Patricia's voice rose above the others, shrill with panic. "I don't care if you're the 20th technician they've sent. Fix it. We have customers waiting, reservations backing up, and if Mr. Volkov wants to settle his bill..." She cut herself off, probably realizing how loud she'd gotten. I glanced back at the corner table. Konstantin Volkov was watching the scene with the detached interest of someone observing insects in a jar. One of his men leaned down, murmuring something in Russian. Volkov's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The newest technician, a young guy with thick glasses and a laptop bag, threw up his hands. "Lady, I'm telling you, the configuration is corrupted at the source level. It's going to take a full system restore, minimum 4 hours, maybe longer. There's nothing I can do." Something clicked in my brain, a memory from 3 weeks ago, during another crash, when I'd been standing near the server station. I'd noticed something then, something odd about the way the system rebooted. The error message that flashed across the screen before the managers shooed me away. I'd worked IT support during my first year of college, before I'd had to drop out when Mom got sick. Nothing sophisticated, just help desk stuff, but I'd learned the basics of network troubleshooting. It was a stupid idea, a terrible idea, but my feet were already moving toward the hostess stand. "Excuse me," I heard myself say, my voice small in the chaos. "I think I might know what's wrong." Patricia whirled on me, her face red. "Emma, go back to your tables. This is not your concern. Please." I stepped closer to the main terminal, looking at the error message on the screen. "I used to do IT support. Just let me try something. 1 minute." "Absolutely not. We have professionals, 20 professionals who've all failed." The voice came from behind me, quiet and absolute. Konstantin Volkov had risen from his table and approached with that same predatory grace. He stood close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him, smell that cedar and smoke cologne. Let the girl try. It wasn't a suggestion. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Then she stepped aside. My hands were shaking as I leaned over the keyboard. Every eye in the vicinity was on me now. The technician, the managers, the hostess, and most terrifyingly, the man standing just behind my right shoulder. I could feel him there, a dark presence that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. "Focus, Emma. Focus." I navigated to the system settings, finding the network configuration panel. There, just like I'd suspected. The DNS server addresses were pointing to an outdated internal IP range. Someone had probably updated the physical server locations during a renovation, but never updated the configuration files. Every time the system tried to authenticate a transaction, it was sending requests to servers that no longer existed. My fingers flew across the keyboard. Change the primary DNS. Update the secondary. Clear the cache. Restart the service. The screen went black. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. I'd broken it. I'd made it worse. I was going to be fired, and worse, I'd embarrassed myself in front of... The system chimed. The screen blazed to life, displaying the normal welcome interface. Patricia gasped. The technician's mouth fell open. The hostess started crying with relief, and behind me, Konstantin Volkov laughed, a low, dark sound that seemed to resonate in my chest. "Remarkable," he murmured, so close his breath stirred my hair. "What's your name?" "Emma." I turned to face him, having to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "Emma Price." He studied me for a long moment, and I had the unsettling feeling he was memorizing every detail of my face. Emma Price, the poor waitress who succeeded where 20 professionals failed. His hand reached up, and I froze as his fingers caught a strand of my hair that had escaped from my ponytail. He rubbed it between his thumb and forefinger, a gesture so intimate and proprietary that my breath caught. "Tell me, Emma Price, do you believe in fate?" I don't know, sir. Konstantin." He released my hair, but didn't step back. "You've earned the right to my name, and I believe we've just witnessed fate making herself known." Before I could process what that meant, Patricia recovered enough to interject. "Mr. Volkov, your table. Emma will get you that vodka right away, won't you, Emma?" "Actually," Konstantin said, still looking at me with those dark, consuming eyes, "I find I've lost my appetite for vodka, but I would very much like to know more about the woman who just saved your evening." He reached into his jacket, and every security instinct I had screamed at me to run, but he only pulled out a business card, matte black with silver lettering. He pressed it into my palm, his fingers curling around mine for just a moment. His skin was warm, calloused in unexpected places. "Call this number tomorrow at noon. I have a proposition for you." "I work tomorrow," I said stupidly. "Not anymore, you don't." He turned to Patricia. "This one no longer works here. Consider this your notice." He pulled out a money clip, gold, because of course it was, and peeled off what looked like several $100 bills, placing them on the hostess stand for any inconvenience. "Wait. You can't just... I need this job." The words burst out before I could stop them. Konstantin paused, turning back to me. Something in his expression softened, just fractionally. "You need money. I need someone intelligent, resourceful, and capable of solving problems that others cannot. Tomorrow at noon, Emma Price. Don't disappoint me." He swept toward the exit, his men falling into formation around him. At the door, he stopped and looked back one more time. "And Emma, don't try to run. I told you, I make it my business to know everything about the people in my world. You're in my world now." Then he was gone, leaving only the faint scent of cedar and smoke, and a black business card burning like a brand in my palm. Patricia grabbed my arm. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" I looked down at the card. There was no company name, no title, just a phone number embossed in silver and a single word, Volkov. "No," I thought, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might break free from my chest. "No, I have absolutely no idea what I've just done." But I knew, with a certainty that terrified me, that my life had just changed forever. The restaurant erupted back into activity around me, reservations being processed, orders being placed, the normal rhythm of service resuming. But I stood frozen at the hostess stand, the business card in my hand, watching the doors through which Konstantin Volkov had disappeared. Outside, through the restaurant's tall windows, I could see a black Mercedes with tinted windows pulling away from the curb. No license plate visible. 2 identical black SUVs bracketed it. Security, undoubtedly. "Emma," Patricia's voice snapped me back to reality. "You need to finish your shift. We'll discuss this Later, but how could I finish my shift? How could I pour wine and deliver entrees and smile at customers when everything had just shifted beneath my feet? When a man who apparently had me followed for months had just fired me from my job, my only source of income, and commanded me to call him like he had every right to direct my life. I should have been angry. I was angry. But beneath the anger was something else. Something I didn't want to name. A dark curiosity. A pull I couldn't explain. I looked down at the card again, running my thumb over the raised silver lettering. "Tomorrow at noon," he'd said. I had 18 hours to decide if I was brave enough or foolish enough to call. I didn't sleep that night. My studio apartment, a fifth-floor walk-up in Queens with walls so thin I could hear Mrs. Chen's television through the plaster, felt smaller than usual, suffocating. I sat on my second-hand futon, still in my uniform, the black business card on the coffee table in front of me like a live grenade. 3:47 a.m. The red numbers on my alarm clock mocked me. I'd tried to rationalize it, tried to convince myself that tomorrow I'd wake up, throw the card away, and find another waitressing job. Manhattan was full of restaurants. I had experience, references. I could start fresh somewhere Konstantin Volkov's shadow didn't reach. But even as I thought it, I knew it was a lie. He'd said I was in his world now. Men like him, men who knew where I walked, when I sent money home, how long I'd been working at Luminaire, they didn't just let people walk away. And the way he'd looked at me, like I was something rare he'd stumbled upon and decided to keep. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. "We need to talk about your employment status. Come in early tomorrow." I almost laughed. Employment status. As if I still had a choice in the matter. The first gray light of dawn was creeping through my window when I finally gave up on sleep. I showered, standing under water that never quite got hot enough, and tried to wash away the memory of his fingers in my hair, the weight of his attention, the quiet command in his voice. "You're in my world now." By 11:30 a.m., I was standing outside a coffee shop 3 blocks from my apartment, the business card clutched in my hand. I'd walked around the block twice already, trying to build up courage I wasn't sure I possessed. Just call. Hear what he wants. You can always say no. Except I couldn't, could I? Men like Konstantin Volkov didn't accept no as an answer. At 11:58, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone, I dialed the number. It rang once. Emma Price. His voice poured through the speaker like dark honey, and I realized with a start that he'd been expecting my call exactly on time. Punctual. "Good. There's a car waiting for you outside your building. Black Mercedes. The driver's name is Dmitri. You have 5 minutes. Wait, how did you... 4 minutes and 45 seconds, Emma. Don't keep me waiting." The line went dead. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, my heart pounding. He knew where I lived. Of course he did. He'd probably known since the day I moved in. I should run. I should go to the police, file a report, something. Instead, I found myself walking toward my apartment building, my feet moving of their own accord, and there, idling at the curb, was a black Mercedes. The same one from last night, or one identical to it. The driver's window rolled down, a man in his 50s, solid and severe, with close-cropped gray hair and eyes that had seen too much, nodded at me. "Miss Price, I am Dmitri. Mr. Volkov is expecting you." He got out and opened the back door with the mechanical efficiency of someone who'd performed this action thousands of times. The interior smelled of leather and that same cedar cologne. Empty, but somehow still full of Konstantin's presence. "Where are we going?" My voice came out smaller than I'd intended. "Mr. Volkov will explain." Dmitri's accent was thicker than Konstantin's, pure Russian, with no room for negotiation. "Please." It wasn't really a request. I got in the car. The door closed with a heavy, final sound, and we pulled into traffic. I watched my neighborhood disappear through the tinted windows, the bodega where I bought coffee, the laundromat I visited every Sunday, the subway entrance I took to work, my whole life, getting smaller and smaller until it vanished entirely. We drove north, then east, leaving Manhattan behind for the wider streets of Brooklyn. The neighborhoods grew progressively more upscale, brownstones giving way to renovated warehouses, then to areas where you needed a code just to access the street. Finally, we pulled up to a building that looked like a fortress disguised as luxury, all glass and steel and sharp angles, with an entrance flanked by 2 more men in dark suits. Security cameras covered every angle. A gate that required both a key card and a fingerprint scan. Dmitri parked in an underground garage that held at least 20 other vehicles. All black, all expensive, all with tinted windows. He opened my door and gestured toward a private elevator. Penthouse. Mr. Volkov is waiting. The elevator was mirrored on all sides, and I caught sight of myself as we rose, pale dark circles under my eyes, my hair pulled back in the same practical ponytail I always wore. I looked exactly like what I was, a poor waitress way out of her depth. The elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse, and I stepped into a different world. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the East River, the morning sun turning the water to molten gold. The furniture was minimal but clearly expensive. Leather, chrome, dark wood. Everything was precise, controlled, from the abstract paintings on the walls to the way the books on the shelves were arranged by height. But it was the silence that struck me most. Not peaceful silence, the silence of a place where sound was swallowed, where secrets were kept. Miss Price. A woman emerged from what looked like a kitchen. Tall, blonde, beautiful in that severe, untouchable way. Her accent was Russian, her suit impeccable. "I am Katya, Mr. Volkov's assistant. He will be with you shortly. Please, sit." She gestured to a leather sofa that probably cost more than my yearly rent. I perched on the edge of it, afraid to actually settle in, my hands clasped tight in my lap. Katya brought me water in a crystal glass, then disappeared through a doorway. I heard low voices speaking Russian, hers and a deeper one that made my pulse spike. Then he was there. Konstantin entered the room like he owned not just the space, but the air itself. He'd shed the suit jacket from last night, rolled his shirt sleeves to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars. His hair was slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it. It made him look younger, more human, but his eyes were the same, dark, assessing, missing nothing. "Emma." He didn't smile, but something in his expression softened when he said my name. "You came. You didn't leave me much choice." That earned me a ghost of a smile. "There is always a choice. You could have run, called the police, disappeared. But you're here." He moved to a bar cart, poured himself 2 fingers of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. "Do you know why?" "You're going to tell me." He turned, leaning against the window with the river behind him, backlit like some dark angel. "Because you're curious. Because you're intelligent enough to realize that running from me would be futile and pointless. And because, despite your fear, you're intrigued." He wasn't wrong, and I hated that he could read me so easily. "You said you had a proposition." I forced my voice to stay steady. "I'm here. What do you want?" Konstantin took a slow sip of his drink, studying me over the rim of the glass. "Tell me about your mother." The sudden shift threw me. "What?" "Your mother. Linda Price, 53 years old, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, currently in hospice care in Cleveland. You send her $2,000 every 2 weeks, which is approximately 70% of your income." His voice remained neutral, clinical, but there was something underneath it. "The doctors have given her 6 months, maybe less." Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "How dare you?" "I dare because I need you to understand something." He set down his glass and crossed to where I sat, lowering himself onto the coffee table directly in front of me, close, too close, his knees almost touching mine. "I know everything about you, Emma Price. Your mother's illness, your father who died when you were 12, the full scholarship to NYU you had to abandon after 1 year, the 3 jobs you've worked simultaneously to keep your head above water, the fact that you haven't bought yourself new clothes in 8 months, because every spare dollar goes to your mother's care." My breath hitched. It was too much, this stranger holding all my pain, all my secrets, examining them like artifacts. "I know you're drowning," he continued, his voice dropping lower, intimate, "and I'm offering you a lifeline." "What kind of lifeline?" I managed to whisper. "Work for me. Not as a waitress. as my... He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Problem solver. Last night, you fixed in 1 minute what 20 professionals couldn't resolve. That kind of mind is valuable. I need someone who can think differently, see solutions others miss. I fixed a computer error. That doesn't make me qualified to work for a... I stopped myself, but not soon enough. For a what, Emma? A criminal? His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. You can say it. I won't be offended by the truth. I don't know what you are, I said, meeting his eyes despite the fear coursing through me. But I know enough to be scared. Good. Fear is intelligent. Fear keeps you alive. He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. The gesture was gentle, almost tender, completely at odds with the danger radiating from him. But you should also know that I protect what's mine. Work for me. And you'll have protection, resources, money. Enough money to give your mother the care she deserves. Experimental treatments, private nurses, the best doctors in the country. My heart clenched. Why? Why would you do that for a stranger? Because you're not a stranger anymore. His fingers lingered near my face, not quite touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat of his skin. From the moment you stepped into my line of sight, you became something else. Something I want. The admission hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. I won't. I stumbled over the words, my face flushing. Relax, Emma. He withdrew his hand, but his eyes remained locked on mine. I'm not asking you to warm my bed. I'm asking you to work for me. What happens beyond that? His gaze dropped briefly to my lips, then back up. We'll let fate decide. I should have said no. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to refuse, to walk out, to run as far and as fast as I could. But I thought of my mother, hooked up to machines, wasting away in a hospice bed because I couldn't afford the treatments that might save her. I thought of the crushing weight of poverty, of helplessness, of watching someone you love die because you're not rich enough to save them. What would I have to do? The words came out before I could stop them. Constantine's expression shifted, something dark and satisfied flickering across his features. Various tasks. Problem-solving, as I said, some technical, some logistical. I have many business interests, Emma. Some legitimate, some... He shrugged. Less so. You would help me manage complications, find solutions, fix what's broken. And if I refuse, then you go back to your life, your apartment, your waitressing job, assuming you can find one after word spreads that you've caught my attention. Your mother continues to decline, and He stood, moving back to the window. I find someone else, someone less interesting, less intelligent, less perfect for what I need. It wasn't a threat, exactly. Just a statement of facts. But the implication was clear. How much? My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. 10,000 a week. Plus medical coverage for your mother. Full coverage, any treatment, any specialist. She can be moved to New York if you wish, to the best private facility in the city. Or she can remain in Cleveland with round-the-clock care. Your choice. 10,000 a week. That was more than I made in 4 months. More than enough to give my mother a fighting chance. There's always a catch, I said. What's the catch? Constantine turned back to face me, and in the morning light, with the river behind him, he looked like something out of a dark fairy tale, beautiful and terrible and absolutely uncompromising. The catch is that you belong to me now. Not in the way you're thinking, he added quickly, reading the panic on my face. You work for me. You're under my protection. That means you don't take other jobs. You don't speak to police. You don't betray my trust. You're loyal, or you're nothing. There is no middle ground. And if I want to leave, then you leave. His expression hardened. But you don't take my secrets with you. And your mother loses her medical coverage. I'm not a man who tolerates betrayal, Emma. Ask anyone who's tried. The unspoken threat hung between us like smoke. I looked down at my hands, calloused from work, nails bitten short, a small burn scar on my left thumb from a kitchen accident last month. These were the hands of someone who'd never had choices, never had options. Someone who'd spent her whole life treading water, barely keeping her head above the surface. Constantine was offering me a rope. It didn't matter that the rope was made of thorns and wrapped around the wrist of a devil. "I need to think about it," I said finally. "No." His response was immediate, absolute. "You decide now, here. This is the only time I make this offer." "That's not fair." "Fair?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Life isn't fair, Emma. Cancer isn't fair. Poverty isn't fair. I'm offering you a way out, a way to save the person you love most in this world. Don't insult me by pretending you need more time to decide." He was right. God help me. He was right. I thought of my mother, of her smile that was all pain now, of the way she'd stopped talking about the future because we both knew she didn't have one. I thought of the weight of hospital bills, of worthless insurance, of watching her fade a little more each day. "Okay." The word slipped out, quiet but irrevocable. "Okay, I'll do it." Constantine's entire demeanor shifted. The tension in his shoulders eased. Something that might have been relief flickered across his face, there and gone so fast I almost missed it. "Good." He pulled out his phone, typed something rapidly. "Katya will prepare the contracts. You'll start tomorrow. Dmitri will collect you at 8 a.m. "Contracts?" My voice pitched higher. "What kind of—" "Standard employment agreements, non-disclosure clauses, medical authorizations for your mother's care. Nothing that should concern you unless you plan to betray me." He pocketed his phone and closed the distance between us again. "And Emma? You should know something else." He reached out, his hand cupping my jaw, tilting my face up to meet his eyes. The touch was firm, possessive, and sent an unwelcome shiver down my spine. "I always take care of what's mine. You're mine now. That means no one hurts you, no one threatens you, no one touches you without consequences. Do you understand?" I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe with him this close, his dark eyes boring into mine. "Say you understand," he commanded softly. "I understand," I whispered. "Good girl." He released me, stepping back, and the loss of his warmth was startling. "Dmitri will take you home. Pack what you need. You're moving." "Moving? Where?" "Here. The floor below this one. You'll have your own apartment fully furnished. It's safer, and I prefer to keep valuable assets close." "I'm not an asset." "Yes, you are." His voice cut through my protest like a knife. "The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. Now go. We'll discuss the details of your first assignment tomorrow." Katya materialized from wherever she'd been waiting, a folder in her hands. "Miss Price, if you'll come with me, we'll handle the paperwork." I stood on shaking legs, following her toward a sleek glass desk in the corner of the room, but I looked back once and found Constantine still watching me, his expression unreadable, a half-empty glass of whiskey in his hand. He raised the glass slightly in my direction. A toast or a warning, I couldn't tell which. As Katya spread papers across the desk, her voice crisp and efficient, explaining terms and conditions, all I could think was that I'd just made a deal with the devil, and the worst part? I wasn't sure I regretted it. The apartment Constantine gave me was a cage made of marble and glass. Beautiful, yes. Spacious, certainly. The kind of place I'd once dreamed about when I was scrubbing toilets and living on ramen. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine, a kitchen with appliances I didn't know how to use. But the security system required a code to exit. The windows didn't open, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that cameras were watching my every move. That first night, I'd stood in the center of the living room, surrounded by luxury I'd never earned, and felt more trapped than I ever had in my cramped studio. But then I'd called my mother. "Emma?" Her voice had been weak, threaded with pain even through the medication. "Baby, it's late there. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Mom. Better than fine. I have news." I'd forced brightness into my tone, swallowing the fear. "I got a new job, a good one, and they have amazing medical benefits. I'm going to get you the treatment you need. The real treatment. We're going to fight this." The silence on the other end had stretched so long, I thought the connection had dropped. Then, "Emma, honey, we talked about this. The experimental treatments, they're too expensive." "Not anymore. It's all taken care of. I'm sending a care coordinator to see you tomorrow. Her name is Dr. Sarah Chen. She's going to arrange everything, transfer you to a better facility, start the new protocol. All of it." My mother had cried. I'd cried. And when I'd hung up, I'd looked around my gilded cage and thought, worth it. Whatever comes next, this was worth it. That had been 3 weeks ago. Now, I sat in Constantine's penthouse office, a room I'd come to know well, reviewing financial records on a tablet while he conducted business in rapid Russian on his phone. I'd learned to tune out the conversations I wasn't meant to understand, to focus on the tasks he assigned me. And there were many tasks. The first had been simple: analyze shipping manifests and identify discrepancies. I'd found 3 phantom containers that didn't match the bill of lading, saving him from what he'd called an unfortunate misunderstanding with customs. The second had been more complex: debug a secure communication system that kept dropping encrypted messages. Turned out someone had been skimming data packets. Constantine had smiled when I'd shown him the proof, then made a phone call. I didn't ask what happened to the person responsible. I didn't want to know. Each problem I solved, each fire I put out, I told myself I was just doing technical work. Administrative support. Nothing illegal. Nothing that made me complicit in whatever darker business Constantine conducted in the shadows. I was getting very good at lying to myself. "Emma." Constantine's voice pulled me from the spreadsheet I'd been studying. He'd finished his call and was watching me with that intensity that never quite went away. "How is your mother?" he asked every day. At first I'd thought it was manipulation, a reminder of his leverage over me, but there was something in the way he asked, genuine curiosity, maybe even concern, that confused me. "Better." I set down the tablet, meeting his eyes. "The new treatment is working. Her numbers are improving. Dr. Chen says if this continues, she might be able to come to New York next month." Something shifted in his expression. Satisfaction? Yes, but something else too. Something almost soft. "Good. You should have the people you love close. Life is too uncertain to waste time apart." It was the most personal thing he'd said to me since that first day, and I found myself studying him with new curiosity. "You sound like you're speaking from experience." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I am." He stood, moving to the window. His thinking position, I'd learned. I had a sister once, younger. When the world we lived in fell apart, I was building my empire, focused on survival. I thought there would be time later to bring her somewhere safe, to protect her properly. The past tense hung heavy in the air. "What happened?" I asked softly. I was wrong about the time. His reflection in the glass was hard, haunted. "There's a lesson in that, Emma. When you have the power to save someone you love, you do it immediately. No hesitation, no waiting for the perfect moment. Because that moment might never come." My chest tightened. It was the most vulnerable I'd ever seen him. This man who wore power like armor. "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be grateful you still have the chance I lost." He turned back to face me. "Your mother will have the best care available. I've made sure of it." Before I could respond, the elevator chimed. Dmitri stepped out, his expression grim. "Boss, we have a problem." Constantine's demeanor shifted instantly, all vulnerability vanishing behind cold professionalism. "Speak." "Sergei's shipment." It was intercepted, not by police, by Volkov's people. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I didn't know who Volkov was, but the name made Constantine's hands curl into fists. "How much did we lose?" 2 million in merchandise, but that's not the worst part. Dmitri glanced at me, hesitant. "They left a message. They know about her." My blood ran cold. Her. Me. Constantine's face could have been carved from ice. "Get everyone here. Now. Full security protocols." He looked at me, and for the first time since I'd met him, I saw something like fear in his eyes. "Emma, you're not to leave this building. Not for any reason. Do you understand?" "What's happening? Who's Volkov?" "A rival. Someone who's been trying to take what's mine for years." He crossed to me, gripping my shoulders. This is my world, Emma. The world I warned you about. People will try to hurt you to get to me. I need to know you'll follow my instructions exactly. No arguments. No risks. You're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. But you should also know that I will burn this entire city to the ground before I let anyone touch you. The fierceness in his voice, the absolute conviction, sent a shiver through me. You're under my protection. That's not just words. That's a promise sealed in blood if necessary. Over the next hour, the penthouse transformed into a war room. Men arrived. Hard men with cold eyes and bulges under their jackets that could only be weapons. They spoke in rapid Russian, pointing at maps and photographs spread across Constantine's dining table. I caught snippets: surveillance, safe houses, retaliation. I retreated to a corner of the room, trying to be invisible, but Constantine kept glancing at me, checking that I was still there, still safe. Katya appeared beside me, her usually impassive face showing a crack of concern. You should eat something. It's going to be a long night. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway. Boss's orders. She pressed a plate into my hands. Cheese, fruit, bread. He worries about you, more than is wise. I looked up sharply. What do you mean? Katya studied me for a long moment. I've worked for Konstantin Volkov for 8 years. I've seen him with many women, beautiful women, sophisticated women, women who understood his world and chose to be part of it. She paused. He's never looked at any of them the way he looks at you. He looks at me like an investment he needs to protect. No. Katya's smile was sad, knowing. He looks at you like a man looks at something precious he's terrified to break. It's dangerous, that kind of feeling. For both of you. Before I could process that, Konstantine's voice cut through the room. Katya, take Emma to the secure floor. Stay with her until I come for her personally. Boss, now. The command in his voice brooked no argument. Katya touched my elbow, guiding me toward a door I'd never noticed before, hidden in the wall paneling, leading to a staircase I didn't know existed. Wait. I pulled away, looking back at Constantine. He stood at the center of his men, radiating authority and danger. Every inch the crime lord I'd been trying not to think of him as. Be careful. He met my eyes across the room, and something passed between us, electric, intense, undeniable. Always am, Emma. Now go. The secure floor was actually a bunker. No windows, reinforced walls, enough supplies to survive a siege. Katya led me to a bedroom that was comfortable but claustrophobic. All the luxury unable to disguise its true purpose. A panic room. How often does this happen? I asked, sinking onto the bed. Not often. But in this business, you prepare for every possibility. Katya checked her phone, frowning. Try to rest. It could be hours, but rest was impossible. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the muffled sounds of activity above. I thought about my mother, safe in her new facility, getting treatment that was actually working. I thought about the 3 weeks I'd spent in Constantine's orbit, solving problems, earning blood money even if I called it something else. I thought about the way he'd looked at me tonight, like I was something worth protecting even at great cost. Around 2 a.m., the door opened. Constantine stood in the doorway, his shirt untucked, a smear of blood on his collar that I prayed wasn't his. His eyes found me immediately, scanning me head to toe as if checking for damage. Are you hurt? I sat up quickly. It's not my blood. He crossed to me, kneeling beside the bed so we were eye level. His hands cupped my face, thumbs brushing my cheekbones. Are you all right? I'm fine. I was safe the whole time. What happened? It's handled. Volkov's people won't bother you again. The coldness in his voice when he said that made me not want to ask for details. I need you to understand something, Emma. This life, my life, it comes with dangers. I can minimize them, control most variables, but I can't eliminate the risk entirely. I know that. Do you? Do you really understand what it means to be mine? His grip on my face tightened slightly. Not painful, but firm. It means you're a target. It means people will try to use you to hurt me. It means you'll see things, know things that will change how you see the world. Then why keep me here? Why not let me go? The question hung between us, and I saw the war in his eyes, logic battling against something rawer, more primal, because I can't. The admission came out rough, almost angry. I should. You'd be safer. But from the moment you fixed that system, looked up at me with those defiant eyes and refused to be intimidated, I was lost. You're in my blood now, Emma, and I don't give up what's mine. He leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching mine. I could smell the smoke that clung to him, the copper scent of blood, the cedar cologne underneath it all. My heart hammered against my ribs. Tell me to stop, he whispered. Tell me you want to leave, that you don't feel this too, and I'll let you go. I'll keep your mother in care, make sure you're protected from a distance. Just say the word. I should have said it. Should have taken the escape he was offering. But Katya's words echoed in my mind. He looks at you like something precious he's terrified to break. And the truth was, I felt it too. This dark, dangerous pull toward a man who should terrify me. Who did terrify me. But who also looked at me like I mattered, like I was more than just a poor waitress struggling to survive. I don't want to leave, I heard myself say. His eyes darkened, pupils dilating. Emma, I should want to leave. I should be running, but I'm not. I lifted my hand, touching the blood on his collar. What does that make me? Mine. He caught my hand, pressing it against his chest where I could feel his heart racing. It makes you mine, Emma, completely. When he kissed me, it wasn't gentle. It was possession and promise, and a claim he'd been holding back since the moment we met. His hands tangled in my hair, tilting my head back. And I let him, surrendering to the dark gravity of this man who'd crashed into my life and changed everything. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine again. No going back now, he murmured. I know. You're truly mine. Body, mind, soul. I'll protect you with my life, give you anything you want. But in return, you belong to me. Only me. Say it. I belong to you. The words should have felt like chains. Instead, they felt like relief. Like finally admitting a truth I'd been fighting. Good girl. He stood, pulling me up with him. Come. You're sleeping in my room tonight. I'm not letting you out of my sight. He led me upstairs to his penthouse, to a bedroom I'd never seen. All dark colors and masculine lines, dominated by a massive bed. He stripped off his bloodied shirt, revealing a tapestry of scars across his chest and abdomen. Stories written in violence across his skin. I reached out tentatively, tracing a particularly nasty one near his ribs. Does it hurt? Not anymore. He caught my hand, kissing my palm. Get some rest, Emma. Tomorrow things change. Change how? Tomorrow everyone knows you're not just my employee. You're under my personal protection. That comes with certain expectations, certain appearances we'll need to maintain. His thumb traced my lower lip. The world needs to believe you're mine in every way. Can you do that? I thought about what he was really asking. To play the role of his woman, his lover. To make the target on my back official and absolute. Yes, I whispered. Satisfaction flickered across his face. He pulled back the covers, gesturing for me to get in. I climbed into his bed, still fully clothed, and he settled beside me, pulling me against his chest, one arm wrapped around my waist, holding me tight. Sleep, he commanded softly. I've got you. And surrounded by his warmth, his scent, the steady beat of his heart against my back, I did something I wouldn't have thought possible hours ago. I felt safe. The world learned I belonged to Konstantin Volkov 3 days later, at a charity gala I hadn't known existed until that morning. You'll need something appropriate to wear. Katya had appeared in my apartment at 7 a.m. with a garment bag and a knowing smile. Boss wants you ready by 6. You know, the dress inside was midnight blue silk, elegant and expensive, the kind of thing I'd never have chosen for myself. It fit perfectly, of course. Konstantin seemed to know everything about me, including my measurements. By 6 p.m., I stood in front of the full-length mirror, barely recognizing myself. Hair styled in soft waves, makeup professionally applied by someone Katya had brought in, jewelry that probably cost more than my old yearly salary glittering at my throat and wrists. I looked like I belonged in Constantine's world. I looked like a beautiful lie, breathtaking. His voice came from the doorway, and I turned to find him in a tuxedo that made him look even more dangerous than usual. He crossed to me slowly, his eyes drinking me in. Perfect. I feel like I'm playing dress-up. You are. He fastened a bracelet around my wrist, diamonds and sapphires that caught the light. But by the end of tonight, the role becomes reality. Everyone will know you're mine. There will be no going back, Emma. Last chance to change your mind. I thought about the past 3 days, about Constantine pulling me into his office between meetings to steal kisses that left me breathless, about falling asleep in his arms every night, his body wrapped protectively around mine even though we hadn't crossed that final line yet, about the way he touched me like I was made of glass and fire simultaneously, precious and dangerous. I'm not changing my mind. Something fierce and possessive flared in his eyes. He pulled a small box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a ring, a single large sapphire surrounded by diamonds, set in platinum. Then wear this. Right hand, so people know what it means. What does it mean? I asked as he slid it onto my finger. That you're under my protection, that you're claimed, that anyone who touches you answers to me. He lifted my hand to his lips, kissing the ring. It also means you'll be watched tonight. Judged. There are people at this gala who would love to see me vulnerable, and you're my vulnerability now. That's reassuring, I muttered. His lips curved into a rare, genuine smile. You'll be fine. You're stronger than you think, Emma Price. That's why I chose you. The gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, closed to the public for the evening, and transformed into a glittering showcase of Manhattan's elite and its underworld, I realized quickly. These weren't just wealthy socialites. They were power players, criminals in expensive suits, the people who ran the city from the shadows. And they all seemed to know Constantine. He moved through the crowd with easy confidence, one hand possessively at the small of my back, introducing me as if it were the most natural thing in the world. This is Emma. She's with me. Those 3 words, she's with me, carried weight I was only beginning to understand. People looked at me differently after he said them, calculating, reassessing, some with barely concealed envy, others with pity. Volkov. A man approached us, silver-haired, distinguished, with eyes like chips of ice. I heard rumors, but I didn't believe them. You settling down? I don't settle, Antonov. I acquire. Constantine's arm tightened around my waist. Emma, this is Victor Antonov. We have overlapping business interests. The way he said overlapping suggested those interests involved violence. Antonov's gaze raked over me, and I felt Constantine tense beside me. Quite a departure from your usual type. A civilian? She's mine. That's all that matters. The warning in Constantine's voice was clear. Of course. Antonov smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Just be careful, my friend. Civilians break so easily in our world. After he walked away, I leaned closer to Constantine. Was that a threat? An observation. Ignore him. But his hand remained tense against my back, and I noticed Dmitri positioning himself closer to us, along with 3 other men I recognized from the security detail. The evening continued in a surreal blur. Champagne I was too nervous to drink. Conversations loaded with double meanings I only half understood. And always, Constantine's presence beside me. Protective, possessive, a dark star around which everyone else orbited. We were examining a Renaissance painting when I felt it, the prickle of hostile attention. I turned slightly and caught sight of a woman watching us from across the gallery. Beautiful in a sharp, predatory way, wearing red like a warning. Her eyes were fixed on Constantine with an intensity that made my stomach clench. Who's that? I whispered. Constantine followed my gaze and his expression hardened. Irina Volkov. She's the rival you mentioned. I remembered the name, the night of the attack. She's the one who knows about me. Yes. He turned me to face him, blocking my view of her. Stay close to me. Don't engage with her if she approaches. Don't accept anything she offers, even if it seems harmless. You're scaring me again. I'm keeping you alive. He cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. Irina is dangerous, Emma. More dangerous than most of the men in this room. She'll smile and seem charming, but she's a viper. And right now, she's looking for weaknesses in my armor. And I'm your weakness. Yes. No hesitation. No attempt to soften it. You are. Which is why you don't leave my sight tonight. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. An hour later, Constantine was pulled into a private conversation with 3 men in a side gallery. Business that couldn't wait, apparently. He'd been reluctant to leave me, posting Dmitri at my elbow with clear instructions not to let me out of his sight. I'd been examining a sculpture, trying to appear comfortable and sophisticated, when a waiter offered me champagne. I took it absently, grateful for something to do with my hands. The first sip tasted slightly off, but I attributed it to expensive taste I wasn't accustomed to. The second sip made my head swim. By the third, I realized something was very wrong. The room tilted. Sounds became muffled. My legs felt like they were made of water. Miss Price? Dimitri's concerned face swam into view. Are you ill? Something's wrong. The champagne glass slipped from my fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Strong hands caught me before I fell. But they weren't Constantine's hands. They were smaller, feminine, with red nails that matched the dress I'd noticed earlier. Oh dear, she seems unwell. Irina Volkov's voice was honey-sweet, concerned for anyone listening. But when she leaned close, her whisper was ice. Did you really think Constantine could protect you from me, little bird? You're coming with me now. Try to scream and I'll put a bullet in that guard's spine. Through my drugged haze, I saw the small pistol pressed against Dimitri's back, hidden by the folds of her dress. Saw her men materializing from the crowd, surrounding us. Walk, she commanded softly. Smile. Act drunk. If you care about anyone here living through the night, you'll cooperate. I tried to fight the drug, tried to call for Constantine, but my tongue was thick and my vision was tunneling. Dmitri was shouting something in Russian, reaching for his weapon. But Irina's men already had him subdued. The last thing I remember before darkness took me was a scream echoing through the gallery. Primal, furious, full of rage and terror. Constantine's voice, bellowing my name. Then nothing. I woke to the smell of mildew and rust. My head pounded. My mouth tasted like copper, and when I tried to move, I discovered my wrists were zip-tied to a metal chair. Panic flooded through me, sharp and immediate. I was in what looked like an abandoned warehouse. Water-stained concrete walls, broken windows high above, the distant sound of traffic suggesting we were still in the city somewhere. How long had I been unconscious? Hours? Days? Awake already? Irina Volkov emerged from the shadows, still in her red dress but with a gun now openly holstered at her hip. The drug should have kept you under longer. Interesting. You're stronger than you look. Where am I? What do you want? Where you are doesn't matter. What I want, she circled me slowly, predator assessing prey, is to watch Constantine Volkov bleed. And you, little bird, are the knife I'll use to cut him. He'll find me. I'm counting on it. She smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. Do you know what you've done, Emma Price? You've made yourself the center of his world. The mighty Volkov, who hasn't shown weakness in a decade, is now vulnerable. All because of some poor waitress who fixed a computer. She grabbed my chin, forcing me to meet her eyes. He killed my brother, took territory that belonged to my family, destroyed everything my father built. And now, finally, I have the leverage to destroy him in return. Your brother probably deserved it. I spat, surprising myself with the venom in my voice. Irina's hand cracked across my face, hard enough to make my ears ring. Careful. Just because I need you alive doesn't mean I need you comfortable. She pulled out her phone, typing something quickly. Let's let him know where to find you. See how many men he's willing to lose trying to save you. He won't fall for it. He's too smart. He's in love with you, you stupid girl. Love makes smart men do idiotic things. That's the lesson my brother learned too late. She showed me the phone screen, a photo of me, bound and bleeding from a split lip. This is already sent, along with an address. He'll come. The only question is how many pieces I'll need to return you in. The next 3 hours were the longest of my life. Irina's men came and went, setting up positions, checking weapons, speaking in low Russian about fields of fire and kill zones. They were preparing for war, with me as the bait. And Konstantin would come. I knew he would. Irina was right about that. I was going to get him killed. The thought was unbearable. This man who'd crashed into my life, who'd saved my mother, who looked at me like I was something precious, he was going to die trying to save me. Unless I did something first. I'd been working at the zip ties since I'd regained consciousness, flexing my wrists, looking for any weakness. They were tight, but not impossibly so. And I'd noticed something. The chair I was bound to was old, the metal joints rusted and weak. If I could break the chair, I could get my hands free. If I could get my hands free, I could run, hide, maybe disrupt their ambush plans enough to give Konstantin a fighting chance. It was a terrible plan, but it was the only plan I had. I waited until Irina stepped away to coordinate with her men, until the warehouse was full of activity and distraction. Then I began to rock the chair, small movements at first, testing the joints. The metal groaned softly. One of the back legs was loose. I could feel it. Harder now. Rocking with purpose, despite the pain in my wrists. The leg gave way with a sharp crack that sounded like a gunshot in my ears. The chair collapsed, sending me sprawling onto the concrete. My shoulders screamed in protest, but my hands were free, still zip-tied together, but free from the chair. Shouts in Russian, footsteps running toward me. I scrambled to my feet, looking for an exit, any exit. There, a doorway leading deeper into the warehouse. I ran. Bullets pinged off the concrete beside me. Someone was shooting, but not to kill. Irina needed me alive, I remembered. It was the only advantage I had. I crashed through the doorway into a maze of old offices and storage rooms. Behind me, I heard Irina screaming orders, men fanning out to search. I kept moving, my zip-tied hands making it hard to balance, my head still fuzzy from the drug. I found a small room full of broken equipment and squeezed myself behind a rusted filing cabinet, trying to control my breathing, trying to think. That's when I heard it. The unmistakable sound of breaking glass, of doors being breached. Then gunfire. Real gunfire. Not warning shots. Konstantin had arrived. The next few minutes were chaos. Gunshots echoed through the warehouse like thunder. Voices shouting in Russian and English. The sound of bodies hitting the floor. I stayed hidden, making myself as small as possible, praying that when the dust settled, Konstantin would still be standing. Then his voice, roaring through the warehouse. "Emma!" "Here," I called back, crawling out from behind the cabinet. "I'm here." Footsteps pounding toward me. The door burst open, and there he was. Konstantin, covered in blood spatter, gun in hand, eyes wild with fury and fear. When he saw me, something in his expression cracked. "Emma!" He was across the room in 3 strides, pulling me against him, his hands frantically checking for injuries. "You're hurt. Where? Where did they hurt you?" "I'm okay. Just my lip. It's nothing." He kissed me then, hard and desperate, tasting like violence and relief. When he pulled back, his eyes were darker than I'd ever seen them. "I thought I'd lost you," he said, his voice breaking on the words. "When I saw that photo, I'm here. I'm alive. But Konstantin, Irina, is dead." His voice went flat, cold. "I put 2 bullets in her skull myself. Anyone who helped take you is dead. They're all dead, Emma." The finality in his voice should have scared me. Instead, I felt only relief. He pulled out a knife, carefully cutting the zip ties from my wrists. The skin underneath was raw and bleeding, and he cursed softly in Russian, pressing gentle kisses to each wrist. "We need to leave. Now." Before police arrive, he lifted me into his arms despite my protest that I could walk, carrying me through the warehouse like I weighed nothing. I caught glimpses of the carnage as we passed. Bodies in red pools, bullet holes in walls, the aftermath of Konstantin's vengeance. Dmitri was there, alive but injured, being helped by other men. He nodded at me as we passed, relief clear on his face. Outside, dawn was breaking over the city. Black vehicles waited, Engines running. Constantine placed me in the back of one, sliding in beside me, keeping me pressed against his chest as Dmitri drove us away from the warehouse, from the bodies, from the violence. "You ran," Constantine said after several minutes of silence. "You broke free and ran. Why?" "Because I knew you'd come, and I knew she'd set up an ambush. I couldn't just sit there and let you walk into it." His arms tightened around me. "You could have been killed. So could you." That's what terrified me. I looked up at him, seeing him clearly for the first time. This man who'd just murdered his way through a warehouse to save me. "I was more afraid of losing you than dying myself. What does that say about me? That you're mine?" He kissed my forehead, my temple, my cheek, completely, irrevocably mine. "And I'm never letting you out of my sight again." The aftermath of that night changed everything. Constantine didn't just tighten security. He rebuilt my entire world around the singular principle of keeping me safe. The apartment became a fortress. Dmitri and 2 other guards accompanied me everywhere, and Constantine himself rarely left my side, conducting business from his penthouse office while I worked at the desk he'd installed across from his. But it wasn't fear that kept us bound together. It was something deeper, more fundamental. Something that had crystallized in that warehouse when we'd both realized how close we'd come to losing each other. 2 weeks after the kidnapping, I stood in Constantine's bathroom at 3 a.m., staring at my reflection. The split lip had healed, leaving no scar. The bruises on my wrists had faded to yellow-green shadows. Physically, I was fine. Emotionally, I was unraveling. I'd killed someone's daughter that night. Not directly. Constantine had pulled the trigger, but I was the reason. Irina Volkov was dead because she'd tried to use me as a weapon. How many others had died? How much blood was on my hands by association? "Emma." Constantine's voice was rough with sleep as he appeared in the doorway, concern etched across his features. "Another nightmare?" I nodded, unable to speak around the lump in my throat. He crossed to me, pulling me against his chest, one hand stroking my hair. "Talk to me." "I can't stop thinking about it, about her, about all of them." The words came out broken. "I know she was going to kill me. I know you had no choice. But Constantine, I'm not like you. I'm not built for this world, this violence. I know." His voice was infinitely gentle. "You think I don't see it? The way you flinch when my men talk about business? The way you close your eyes when you think I'm not looking, trying to forget what you've seen? Then why keep me here? Why not let me go? Find someone who can handle because I love you." The words stopped my breath. He'd never said them before, never put a name to the obsessive possession that had defined us from the beginning. "I love you, Emma. Not despite your softness, but because of it. You're the only good thing in my life, the only pure thing I've ever touched. And yes, that makes everything harder. But I can't let you go any more than I can stop breathing." I pulled back to look at him, seeing the naked vulnerability in his eyes. "You love me. Desperately. Completely. In ways that probably aren't healthy." His laugh was self-deprecating. "I spent 10 years building an empire, convincing myself power and control were enough. Then you walked into my restaurant and fixed a problem in 60 seconds, and I realized I'd been living in darkness without knowing what light looked like." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "I love you too. God help me, I do, even though I shouldn't, even though this is all kinds of wrong." He kissed me then, deep and claiming, tasting like toothpaste and forever. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. "Marry me." I froze. "What?" "Marry me, Emma. Make this official. Let me give you my name, my protection, everything I have." His hands cupped my face, thumbs wiping away my tears. "I know it's fast. I know this world terrifies you, but I also know I've never wanted anything more than I want you. Forever." "Constantine?" My heart was racing, torn between terror and something that felt dangerously close to joy. "I'm still the same poor waitress. I don't know how to be the wife of someone like you. You don't need to know. You just need to be you. Brilliant, stubborn, brave enough to run into danger to save me. That's all I want, Emma. Just you." I thought about my mother, who'd called yesterday with the news that her latest scans showed the tumor shrinking. about the life Constantine had given me. Not just money and safety, but purpose. Someone who looked at me like I mattered, like I was essential to his existence. I thought about the warehouse, about the moment I'd heard his voice, and known with absolute certainty that I'd rather die than live in a world without him. Yes. The word came out as a whisper, then stronger. Yes, I'll marry you. The smile that broke across his face was transformative, pure joy, unguarded and real. He lifted me off my feet, spinning me around the bathroom while I laughed and cried simultaneously. "You're mine now," he said when he finally set me down. Officially, completely mine, no taking it back. I wouldn't want to. He kissed me again, slower this time, full of promise. Then he led me back to bed, holding me until dawn painted the sky gold, and I finally fell into dreamless sleep. The wedding took place 6 weeks later in a private ceremony that was equal parts beautiful and terrifying. My mother was there, stronger now, her hair growing back, tears streaming down her face as I walked down the aisle. Constantine had arranged for her to be flown in on a private jet, with a full medical team standing by. She'd whispered to me before the ceremony, "He loves you so much, baby. I can see it in his eyes, and you love him too." "I do, Mom. I really do." "Then that's all that matters. Life's too short to waste time on anything less than extraordinary love." The ceremony itself was held in Constantine's penthouse, transformed into a winter wonderland with thousands of white flowers and candles. 50 people attended, his most trusted men, Katya looking misty-eyed and elegant. A few business associates whose presence was more political necessity than pleasure, and Dmitri, who'd become something like a friend, standing as Constantine's best man with his arm still in a sling from the warehouse battle. I wore a dress Constantine had commissioned, ivory silk that made me feel like something out of a fairy tale. Not the princess, exactly. Maybe the girl who'd stumbled into the dark forest and decided to stay. When the officiant asked if I took Konstantin Volkov to be my husband, I looked into those dark eyes that had haunted me from the first moment and said, "I do." And when Constantine slid the ring onto my finger, platinum and diamonds, a mate to the sapphire he'd given me months ago, his voice was rough with emotion. "You're mine now, Mrs. Volkov, for the rest of our lives. And you're mine," I whispered back. "Don't forget that part." His smile was the most genuine thing I'd ever seen. Never. The reception was elegant and controlled, like everything in Constantine's world, but when he pulled me onto the dance floor for our first dance, with old-world music playing and candlelight catching the diamonds at my throat, it felt real. More real than anything else in my life had ever been. "Happy?" he murmured against my ear as we swayed together. Terrified. Happy. Confused about how I ended up here. I leaned back to look at him, but yes, happy. Good. Because I plan to spend the rest of my life making sure you stay that way. His hand splayed possessively across my lower back. "You gave me something I didn't know I needed, Emma. Hope. Light. A reason to be more than just the monster everyone believes I am. You're not a monster. I am. But with you, I remember I'm also a man. And that man loves you more than power, more than control, more than everything he built." He kissed me softly, right there in front of everyone. "You're my redemption, Emma Volkov. Don't ever forget that." 3 months into our marriage, I finally understood what it meant to be Konstantin Volkov's wife. It meant waking up to his arms around me every morning, his body warm and solid against mine. It meant working beside him during the day, solving the legitimate business problems while carefully not asking about the illegitimate ones. It meant learning to accept the security, the watchful eyes, the way he tracked my location constantly through the phone he'd given me. It meant being loved with an intensity that was sometimes overwhelming, often possessive, but always genuine. And it meant I discovered one morning while standing in my bathroom with a positive pregnancy test in my shaking hands, preparing to bring a child into this complicated, dangerous, beautiful world we'd built. I found Konstantin in his office, reviewing contracts with Dmitri. Both men looked up when I entered, and Konstantin's expression immediately shifted to concern. "Emma, what's wrong?" I couldn't speak. I just held up the test. For 3 heartbeats, he stared at it, not understanding. Then his eyes went wide, his face cycling through shock, fear, and finally settling on something that looked like wonder. "You're pregnant." Not a question. A statement of fact that changed everything. I nodded, tears already streaming down my face. "I'm sorry, I know we didn't plan this. I know the timing is terrible with everything." He was across the room before I could finish, crushing me against him, his hand immediately going to my still flat stomach. "Sorry? Emma, you're giving me a family, something I never thought I'd have. Never thought I deserved." He pulled back just enough to kiss me, deep and reverent. "You're giving me everything." Dmitri cleared his throat awkwardly. "Congratulations, boss. I'll just leave you two alone." But Konstantin was already on his phone, barking orders in Russian. I caught enough to understand. Double the security, contact the best obstetricians in the city, upgrade the penthouse with nursery specifications, investigate any potential threats. "Konstantin," I interrupted gently, "breathe. We have 9 months. 9 months to prepare. 9 months to make sure you're safe, that the baby's safe." His hand remained on my stomach, protective and possessive. "Emma, I need you to understand. This changes everything. The risks, the precautions we'll need to take. I know, but we'll handle it. Together." I covered his hand with mine. "That's what we do, remember? We solve problems, even the complicated ones." He kissed me again, softer this time. "I love you, both of you. And I swear on everything I am, nothing will ever hurt either of you. I'll burn the world down first. Let's try to avoid that," I said, laughing through my tears. "Our child doesn't need to inherit a pile of ashes. Fine, I'll settle for burning down anyone who threatens my family." But he was smiling, real and unguarded, and I realized this was what happiness looked like on Konstantin Volkov. Fierce, protective, absolute. 7 months later, on a snowy December morning, I went into labor 3 weeks early. The panic on Konstantin's face would have been funny if I hadn't been in so much pain. He'd had a birth plan. Of course he'd had a plan, complete with backup hospitals, multiple medical teams on standby, and enough security to protect a head of state. None of it mattered when my water broke in the middle of breakfast. "Get the car!" he roared, scooping me up like I weighed nothing despite my pregnant belly. "Call Dr. Morrison, move." The penthouse erupted into organized chaos. Dmitri coordinating security, Katya gathering hospital bags, men taking positions for the motorcade to the hospital. And Konstantin, always so controlled, looking absolutely terrified. "I've got you," he kept saying as he carried me to the elevator, his voice shaking. "I've got you, Emma. You're going to be fine. Both of you are going to be fine. I know." I gasped between contractions. "Because I have you. We have each other." The labor was long, 18 hours of pain and fear, and Konstantin refusing to leave my side, holding my hand through every contraction, whispering encouragement in Russian and English, looking like he might murder the doctors if they didn't make it better. But when our daughter finally arrived, small and perfect and screaming with healthy lungs, everything else faded away. Konstantin cried, the terrifying Mafia boss who'd killed to protect me, who ruled an empire with an iron fist, held our daughter in his arms and wept like a child. "She's perfect," he whispered, his finger tracing her tiny face. "Emma, look what we made. She's perfect." "What should we name her?" I asked, exhausted but elated, watching my husband fall completely in love with our daughter. "Natasha." His voice broke on the name, after my sister, so she lives on through this beautiful child. Fresh tears spilled down my cheeks. "Natasha Volkov. It's perfect." He brought our daughter to me, carefully placing her in my arms, then wrapped himself around both of us, his wife and his child, his family. "This is everything," he said quietly. "Everything I never knew I wanted, everything I didn't think I deserved. You gave me this, Emma. You saved me." "We saved each other," I corrected, looking down at Natasha's sleeping face. "That night at the restaurant when I fixed that system, we both got saved. Best malfunction in history," he agreed, pressing a kiss to my temple. 20 professionals failed. But you succeeded, in more ways than one. 2 years later, I stood in the kitchen of our new home. A sprawling estate outside the city with grounds secure enough to satisfy Konstantin's paranoia and space enough for Natasha to run free. Watching my husband chase our laughing daughter through the garden, my mother was there too, visiting for the week, her cancer in complete remission. She sat beside me, sipping tea, both of us smiling at the scene outside. "You know," she said quietly, "when you first told me about Konstantin, I was terrified. The way you described him, the world he came from, I thought I was going to lose you. I almost did get lost," I admitted. "But then I found my way. We found our way. He's a good father. Surprisingly gentle with her." I watched Konstantin scoop Natasha up, spinning her around while she shrieked with delight. He'd left the criminal empire behind, mostly, handed day-to-day operations to Dmitri and other trusted men, focusing instead on the legitimate businesses. He still had enemies, still took precautions, still kept enough security to protect a small country. But he was also the man who woke up at 2 a.m. for diaper changes, who read bedtime stories in Russian and English, who looked at our daughter like she'd hung the moon and stars just for him. "He's a good man," I said firmly. "Not a perfect man, but a good one. And he loves us more than anything in this world." "That's all that matters in the end," my mother said, squeezing my hand. "Love, family, the people who'd burn the world down to keep you safe." Konstantin looked up then, catching my eye through the window, and the smile he gave me was pure sunshine, rare and precious, and entirely mine. He mouthed, "I love you." I mouthed back, "I love you too." And I realized, watching my husband play with our daughter in the golden afternoon light, that this was what happy endings look like. Not perfect, not without complications or shadows, but real, earned, worth every terrifying moment that had brought us here. I'd started as a poor waitress who'd fixed a computer in 60 seconds. I'd become Emma Volkov, wife, mother, the woman who'd tamed a monster and discovered he was a man all along. And that, I thought as Konstantin carried Natasha inside, both of them talking at once about the flowers they'd found, was more than enough. It was everything. That evening, after Natasha was asleep and my mother had retired to her room, Konstantin and I stood on the balcony overlooking our grounds. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder, and we watched the stars emerge one by one. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Saying yes that day, accepting my proposition, every day," I admitted, and felt him tense. "I regret that I waited until noon to call. I should have called at dawn, started this life sooner." He laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest into mine. "You're dangerous, Mrs. Volkov. You know exactly what to say to make me fall in love with you all over again." "Good, because you're stuck with me now. Forever." "Forever," he agreed, turning me in his arms to kiss me properly. "Forever isn't nearly long enough." Inside, a baby monitor crackled softly with Natasha's sleeping breaths. Outside, security patrolled the grounds, keeping watch. Above us, stars wheeled across the sky, indifferent to the small human dramas playing out below. And in Konstantin's arms, in the home we'd built from danger and desire and desperate, impossible love, I was finally, completely home. The poor waitress and the Mafia boss. It sounded like the beginning of a story. It was. And like all the best stories, ours had a happy ending after all.